Now, we all love a good roast pork, and today I'm going to show you the secret to getting the most perfect crackle you'll ever have. We're going to start with this beautiful piece of pork. Now, I'm using a Berkshire pork here. There's a couple of things not to be put off when you're looking at a Berkshire pork. It'll have black hairs. That means that it's a really good quality pork, and it'll have this huge layer of fat here. Now, this fat is the best fat you'll ever have. It'll melt in your hands. We're going to start by scoring our pork. I'm going to use a Stanley knife, about 1 centimetre strips, and then across the other way. So the secret to good crackling is time, first of all. Second of all, we're going to pour this boiling hot water all over the skin. It's really important to keep the pork uncovered in the fridge overnight because then it dries out. The less moisture that's on the pork skin, the more crunchy your crackle will be. So our pork shoulder has rested in the fridge uncovered overnight. We're going to pop some beautiful garden fresh sage down on the tray, and then we're going to pop our pork on top. So the first thing we need to do is oil down, and then we're going to rub that oil right through, and then our salt. The beautiful thing about drying your pork out overnight in the fridge is you don't need as much salt as you would do normally. So now that's done, it's going to go into the oven for 5 hours at 100 degrees. So whenever you're cooking a large joint, it really is important to do it at a low and slow rate. 100 degrees for 5 hours allows that fat to render into the meat so it becomes exceptionally tasty and it doesn't dry out. So now I'm going to use a Hokkaido pumpkin. It's a Japanese variety. It's not all butternuts and Queensland blues anymore. We're going to prepare this pumpkin by wrapping it in alfoil and then popping it in the oven with the pork for about 4 or 5 hours. So we're going to pair this roast pork with some fantastic West Australian ingredients that are in season right now. We're going to do a delicious Hokkaido pumpkin puree and some fantastic Carnarvon asparagus. So first of all, in with the butter. We're going to turn on the frying pan. We're just going to melt down some onions in some butter. That's going to take a couple of minutes. So now our roast pork has been in the oven for 5 hours. It's time to get the pumpkin out, start the puree, and get the crackle happening. Now we're going to turn this up to nitro level at 240 degrees. I like to cook them the way I'm doing it here because it really encaptures all of that flavour in there and you don't lose anything. Scraping the seeds out, skin and all, straight into the blender, and you will have the most amazing mash. I'm going to let this cool slightly. I don't want to melt plastic. Let's give this a little puree. Oops. All right. Now we're going to go in with our onions and our butter. Okay, and we're done. So we're going to put some sherry vinegar in a saucepan, in with some currants into the bowl, a little bit of honey in there as well. Whilst we're waiting for that, we'll prep our asparagus. When Carnarvon asparagus is in season, it's absolutely amazing. And the beautiful thing about it is it's local. Take the bottoms off because they'll always be a little bit woody. Okay, so we've come to a simmer now. Pour our vinegar over our currants. What this is going to do is it's going to plump our currants up and melt that honey slightly. We'll let those sit for a couple of minutes. Okay, so our pork is ready. It's extremely important whenever you're roasting or cooking any protein that you allow it to rest. What that does is it lets the meat relax and ensures that the moisture stays in there. Let's cook our asparagus. So a little bit of olive oil in the pan. In with the asparagus. A little bit of salt. Okay, pop our pine nuts in there. Give it a nice little toasty. In with our currants. Now we're going to carve our pork. So we've got our beautiful pumpkin puree, a nice big dollop of pumpkin, our delicious asparagus, Now, because this shoulder has been done for so long at such a low temperature, it's like butter. The asparagus and that dressing of currants steeped in sherry vinegar with pine nuts, that acidity is really going to cut through that fat. So as a combined dish, it's going to be amazing. Now, if you're like me, you take all the crackle and you don't leave anything for anybody else.